What is up, people? Today I'll be doing a movie review on Gladiator 2. As usual, this is my spoiler warning, so if you have not seen this film for whatever reason, then obviously click off. But yeah, this is my spoiler warning. So as usual, I'll be giving you the breakdown. Initial thoughts, positives, and negatives. For the positives, going to be different battles, crazy emperors, son/mother reunion, and Rome setting. For the negatives, going to be meaningless build-up, borrowed elements, and disappointing villain. And then I'll end it with my ending thoughts. At the time of watching Gladiator 2 for the first time, I didn't see the first film in order to have something for comparison. So I went into the second film wanting to give it the benefit of the doubt, hoping that I can come out of it decently satisfied and not bash it entirely. That's why, when seeing the first Gladiator afterwards, I can't be as forgiving as I was before. It's honestly sad in seeing not only the kind of elements they blatantly took from the first film, but as well in general not having the same impact in terms of the characters. An all-around flat/underwhelming kind of film, at least to me. So first I'll talk about different battles. When it comes to this aspect, I did enjoy the different scales increasing and the types of battles. Starting off with the lower scale battles, having Lucius fighting for his life against an aggressive baboon, trying to bite him, and then acts like the baboon to intimidate them. And when he went up against a competitor as people were watching as entertainment and finishing him off with a sword right through his body. And as it goes on, scaling up to larger areas/battles, having Lucius and his men fight off a buff gladiator on a rhino, with one of his men dying in the process and tricking the rhino to charge at him in breaking the horn and going against other gladiators during a naval boat battle, breaking the other boat's rowers and crashing through them to then battle it out in combat. The entertainment factor was there in seeing these battles take place in their chaos/goriness. Next will be crazy emperors. Being honest, these characters in particular were the best ones when they were on screen. Their sheer crazy expressions and wanting to desperately see gory actions was sure something. Speaking out loudly as fights were going on, having tantrums to the point in not controlling their anger, with Emperor Caracalla grabbing his sword and wanting to slash at Acacius, and even just having laughters once a murder was commenced. Although a negative I will say is their motives aren't all that consistent and not truly having the same impact, which I'll get to a later point. That's in the negatives. Next will be son/mother reunion. It was nice to have flashback moments on the tough decisions Lucius' mother had to make back then and years later reuniting while her son was in a cell. That moment of shame/difficulty in Lucius not forgiving her for what she did, but at the same time, Lucilla being glad he was still alive, even with how her son was badly speaking to her. So it was unfortunate in seeing her die, especially at some point when Lucia talked about not caring what happens to her, knowing her son is alive and well, indicating that motherly love towards him. Next will be Rome setting. Keeping this point simple, once Lucius and his men got to Rome, it was visually pleasing to look at, with camera angles and having the Colosseum in the background and other details such as big statues and surrounding structures when having shots pandering more of the location and their overall architectural style. Like I said, pleasing to look at and really just immersing you. Now I'll move on to the negatives, starting with meaningless buildup. Even though the different types of battles were entertaining to watch, it really doesn't push past that factor that much, especially with the main character, Lucius. There was nothing worthy that led up to the crucial moment of him putting on that armor/wielding the sword of Maximus towards the end, especially when considering that there was this emphasis that was repeated by what Macrinus saw in Lucius, being he is fueled by rage. The kind of rage that drives him to get through the battles he gets thrown into, but that is rarely shown across the battles, if not at all. The only scenario that matched on this emphasis was during when Lucius was fighting the baboons. And not even just that, doesn't even indicate on other possible aspects on Lucius being a leader for his men. Something to get out of him that points out a particular trait or just gets some sort of meaningful impact, but isn't the case. Most of the battles were fun, but straightforward/non-impactful. Initial definitely plays on the battles being short-lived. All around just a flat/unencouraging build-up with Lucius. Next would be borrowed elements. This right here was quite a big reason as to why I wasn't going to be as forgiving for this film. It's unbelievable the blatant elements they decided to take and add. It sure was silly, and like I said, since I found time to watch the first film after, it was sure fun in just pointing out all the different similarities. With those being the eavesdropping on a conversation, the double-wielding sword, the grabbing of the sand, the literal same shot of the main character going up the stairs, the same exact shot of Maximus' hand running through the grass, the usage of a beheaded person, both fighting in a smaller area where they were at their lowest, same pandering shot of the Colosseum, both sending out a messenger as a favor for a crucial moment, and having a sword-to-sword combat towards the end. Now, to be fair, some of these I can see them as a nostalgia moment, and others that were, I would say, implemented better. Although for the others, it was a straight blatant copy / borrowed sequences of elements. That is just screaming laziness and no sense of originality. And lastly, I'll talk about disappointing villain. Straight up, the villain in this, Macrinus, doesn't portray any interesting details in making him the kind of character you do not want to mess with, or he will find a way in plotting his revenge to gain an advantage. For the most part, it was mainly through dialogue with this villain whenever he was on screen. I suppose they were trying to have intimidating and serious tone kind of dialogue, but it really didn't have that effect. Plus, there wasn't any physical expression either, except for when he got to beat the higher power-ups and put the Emperor's beheaded head on a pillar, rotating it to face the politicians as he made them uneasy and worried. And to top it off, not showcasing any sort of major reasons or motives for wanting to rise to higher power. I would suppose when he mentioned about being a slave under Lucia's father, but nothing more major past that. And with Macrinus just having the ability to face Lucius in a sword combat as if he has trained for a while. Such disappointment, especially when comparing to Commodus from the first film, as they gave such enriching details that is day and night better. So this is the point right here that I was mentioning when I talked about in my Crazy Emperor's point at the end about the examples I'm going to be giving for Commodus could definitely apply or should have been implemented as well with the Crazy Emperors in this second film. So just keep that in mind. All Commodus ever wanted was to impress his father, but that was shut down due to his father liking Maximus more in his work for Rome, leading to a fire in him to get so mad and flustered that he chokes out his father when having a bonding moment, causing to act more crazy to literally making his own sister feel incredibly uneasy as he tastes her saliva and sending out troops to murder Maximus' wife and kid, and burn down his house as well, even doubling down on mocking the ways the son/wife sounded when they were dying to Maximus. There was an actual reason behind to the stages of evil acts Commodus does, being quite a personal one, and such detailings that brought more depth as an unhinged villain wanting power. The same thing cannot be applied to Macrinus or even just to the Crazy Emperors, as they just basically fall short of any sort of similar kind of impact. In the end, the film simply falls flat in lacking rarely any sort of impact, and to answer the question, are you not entertained? I can safely say I wasn't, per se. Whether it's the nice reunion between Lucius and his mother, or the blatant elements that were borrowed from the first film, this was a disappointing / underwhelming film that felt like a cash grab. As for the rating of this film, I'll be giving Gladiator 2 a 5 out of 10. Anyways, later.